I trained my replacement. Then my boss begged me to stay. I knew something was wrong the moment my boss asked me to train the new guy. He called me into his office on a Tuesday morning. Nothing unusual about that except he looked uncomfortable. He said the company was expanding the team, and they had hired someone new to help with my workload. That sounded great to me. For the past 2 years, I had basically been doing the work of 3 people. Late nights, weekends, constant pressure. So I didn't question it. The new guy, Jason, started the following week. He seemed nice enough, young, eager, the type of employee who still believed hard work would always be rewarded. My boss told me to spend the next 2 weeks showing Jason how everything worked. So I did. I showed him our systems, our clients, our internal processes, everything. I trained him on reports, spreadsheets, and even some shortcuts I had developed to make the job easier. By the end of the second week, Jason was doing the job pretty well. Then Friday afternoon came. My boss asked me to come to HR. That's when my stomach dropped, because nobody gets called to HR on a Friday afternoon for good news. When I walked into the room, my boss and an HR representative were already sitting there. My boss cleared his throat and said the company had decided to restructure. Apparently my position was being eliminated. I sat there for a moment, trying to process what he had just said. Then it hit me. Jason wasn't hired to help me. He was hired to replace me. And I had just spent 2 weeks training him to take my job. They handed me some paperwork and said my last day would be that same afternoon. Just like that, 2 years of hard work was over. I packed up my desk while everyone pretended not to notice. Jason looked confused. I don't think he even knew what had happened. I walked out of the building feeling angry, but also strangely calm, because there was one thing my boss had forgotten. I was the only person who fully managed one of the company's biggest client accounts. It was a massive contract worth hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and that client trusted me personally, not the company. The following Monday morning, my phone rang. It was the client. They said they had received an email from the company introducing Jason as their new account manager, but they had a question. Why hadn't I told them I was leaving? I told them the truth. I explained that the company had decided to replace me. There was a long silence on the phone. Then the client said something interesting. They said the only reason they stayed with the company was because of the relationship we had built. If I wasn't there anymore, they weren't sure they wanted to continue the contract. I didn't ask them to do anything. I simply said I appreciated working with them. 2 days later, my old boss called me. He sounded stressed. Apparently the client had informed the company they were planning to terminate their contract. My boss asked if I could speak to them and convince them to stay. I asked him a simple question. Why would I do that? He started apologizing, saying the decision to fire me was a mistake, that HR had pushed for it, that the company valued my work. Suddenly, the same company that had fired me on a Friday afternoon desperately needed my help. Then he said the words I never expected to hear. Would you consider coming back? I laughed, not in a rude way but in a tired way, because 2 days earlier, they had walked me out of the building like I was disposable. Now they wanted me back. And not just back. They offered me a promotion, more pay, better title. Apparently losing their biggest client was not part of their restructuring plan. I thought about it for a moment. Then I told him the truth. I had already accepted another job, because the same client who called me on Monday had also offered me something else. A position working directly for them. Better salary, better hours, and most importantly respect. My boss went quiet. Then he asked if there was anything the company could do to change my mind. I said yes. They could learn a valuable lesson. Don't fire the person who knows how everything works, especially after making him train his replacement. A week later, I started my new job, and the company I used to work for, they eventually lost that contract. Turns out replacing the wrong employee can be very expensive.